The Political Excellence of the Twin Valleys, current year, 3019. Despite the current sorry state of affairs in the eastern woodland, life in the civilized world goes on, if for no other reason than to spite the barbarians in the south. Because, mercifully, the humans were unable to take it away from us during the war. The 13 families lead our youngest branch of the Kokaran imperial tree with a grace, astuteness, and strength of will found nowhere else on Astilion, and nowhere else except in us of long lives. The families are the direct descendants of the original settler leaders and founders of Astilion. Their lineage is great, and for their brilliance of mind, strength of character, and loyalty to the throne, their superior bloodlines were chosen to rule. The capital of our empire's now diminished holding on Astilion is beautiful Kokana. It is where the families hold their councils, deliver their edicts, and welcome their visitors. The skyline is accentuated with colossal prismatic archways that channel one's focus onto the great marvel, the Twin Gods' Tower. The tower was the first structure that would be built on the ground where the city of Kokana now stands. It is composed primarily of white granite and looms at 250 feet, with its diameter at the base being 50 feet wide. A sign of the Twin Gods' support and presence carved into the tower itself are two gold-trimmed white granite arms, half the size of the tower, that twine around it in a beautiful dance. Our Eastern Valley is the center of academia, intellect, and spirituality on Astilion. Nowhere else will you find the safety or serenity that is found here. The Western Valley, by comparison, is a vicious land of corruption and debauchery. Still present is the beauty of its eastern counterpart, though lacking in appreciation. It is plagued by the festering pit from where it is chiefly ruled, the city of Allfield. An octagon containing all the sins of our world, and perhaps the sins of others, is ruled by Malthius Demarius, the self-described tyrant. And rest assured, despite the label being born of his twisted self-aggrandizing ways, it is not a misnomer. Demarius rose to power nigh on 30 years ago when he and his army, the so-called Horned Devils, rode forth and slaughtered Branby the Patient, the previous Sultan of Allfield. He then named himself Sultan per barbaric customary law in the city. From their den of evil they enforce all manner of vile injustice upon the Western Valley. Tolls from travelers and tribute from citizens are demanded, and force is used to obtain what fear cannot. Though the Empire's concerns rightfully lie elsewhere, I have been insistent in my pleadings with the Council to deal with Demarius, and punish his transgressions against the fair people of the Empire to no avail. When traveling in the Western Valley, it is best to keep a cadre of well-armed and trained guards at your back. The Invaders of the Cold North, beginning in 3012, concurrent to the present day. In the northernmost reaches of Astilion is a barren land that was once named Villa. This land was once an extension of the Northern Valley, and this land was ruled by the 13 families until just recently. When I heard about the invasion to the frigid north, I was in my study at the Koman Academy. Alman Cross, my assistant at the time, who was a younger man, not even in his first century, and who was under the direct tutelage of Archivist Harker Fell, burst into my study, huffing and puffing from no doubt running up the stairs of my tower chamber, and told me that a disaster was happening north of here. An invading force had somehow created a portal into Villa, spewing forth hordes of monstrous invaders with strange, vile magic that twists the bodies and even souls of anyone who comes in contact with it. I truly underestimated the effect of this magic and the potency of the hordes rushing into the brilliant north. I had decided to see it for myself, and to that end prepared magical transport for myself and Cross to the now lost city of Crow's Rest. The hubris that I held in my heart at that moment will haunt me for the rest of my days. Alman and I translocated to the grounds of Crow's Rest School of Magical Horticulture. Immediately we were beset by a horrid cacophony. The skies were an inky black, drowned in smoke and ash. The smell of brimstone underscored the fetid stench of rent flesh and shed blood. And all around us whirred a tempestuous storm of horrifying sounds, screams and foul incantations being the most immediate. Within just a moment, I had begun an incantation to remove us from this hellish place as quickly as we had come. Before I could complete it, however, Alman was taken. It all happened in but a scant few seconds, but a horrid appendage of some winged foul creature had snatched him from the circle. I watched, and saw the horror in his eyes as he was pulled away. He hadn't even fully processed what had just happened, and then he was gone. My incantation completed, and I was once again on the grounds of the Koman Academy, safely in Kokana. I have relived that moment many thousands of times, trying desperately to think of some solution that will never be to save that young man who is now gone. I had many dark years after that day. In that moment, however, I was immediately taken with action. I rushed with all the speed my legs could grant me to the council chambers, hoping to materialize all the sway I held as first archivist to hold a hearing. Nigh on 10 or so minutes later, the councillors were assembled, irked certainly to have been taken from their previous engagements. I stood before them, pleading with all the breath I could muster for action to be taken. Frantically, I begged for an army to be amassed to abate the horrors unending that I had just witnessed. The council sat, somewhat in disbelief, some certainly reveling in the arrogant indulgences of watching me, an accomplished scholar, being gripped by seeming insanity at some paltry story. They waited, opting instead to send some scouting men to assess the situation, obviously discounting the severity and urgency of these circumstances. While they sat and waited, I was off. Returning to my study, I began desperately trying to assemble some schematic or outline on some kind of barrier to stem the tide of horrors now amassing. Though I have always been quite an accomplished abjurer, possessing skill nearly unmatched, I do believe that what I put to paper in service of this goal was some of my finest work. It took but 4 weeks for the wretched creatures to overrun the northern periphery and begin their march towards the valley proper. In 4 weeks, the council had done little but realize how foolish their aloofness truly was, and in 4 weeks I had devised my greatest achievement yet. As the dire nature of the situation truly set in, the council did something truly unprecedented. They requested help from the Zygon Empire. But to my colleagues' surprise, and to mine as well, they agreed. I can only speculate as to why the Zygon Empire did as they did. For my interest, their barbaric politics are mind-numbing and disturbing. But were I to hazard a guess, I would say that whatever inept spies they had in the north gave accurate retellings of events which frightened them, causing them to temporarily align themselves with us for self-preservation. After unveiling my plan to the council and to the Zygon representatives there attending, I was given a company of the finest elven mages to create what is perhaps the greatest architectural feat in known history. The Zygon Empire, for their small part, also sent me some mages, mostly novices, whose bumbling incompetence often found itself hampering my progress more than helping it, but I digress. In what scant time was available, it was constructed. Engineers and mages from both empires worked hand in hand to create it. My Arcanus muras. The Arcanus muras is the largest structure ever built by civilized people. Spurred on by the daily fighting to keep the hordes back, construction lasted only 5 months. Engineers from half the world away were brought in. Techniques from all civilizations mingled and shared, creating a constant, perfect motion of building. The skill and dedication I saw from the head engineers to the lowly workers was an honor to have witnessed in my life, working all hours of the day and night, never stopping by way of multiple rotating workforces. As I shared my magnum opus with the most brilliant and trusted mages of the Academy, we set to work carving the greatest feat of magic into the wall. Every inch of that wall was carved by arcane means, and at such a rate that we had little time to even sleep. As new sections of the wall were built, we carved into them, working our minds to the breaking point. By the time we had finished, the wall was a monument to the towering brilliance of everything the elves stand for and create. The Arcanus muras is a mind-twisting 30,000 feet tall, and 5,000 feet thick at the base, tapering to 2,000 feet toward the top. When the final rune was carved and the wall lit up and connected, everything fell into place with a deafening click. As if knocking over Titanus dominoes, the wall came to life. Not literally, of course, but the wall's arcane measures awoke with a loud hum that it sustains today. All magical forces targeted at the wall are nullified, and any creature that uses that mutated magic near the wall will erupt in a brilliant flash of force, bisecting any creature made of that cancerous magic. Closing account, current year, 3019. While writing this account, I found myself in an odd position. I have ventured through Astilion and encountered many strange sights and people, but I still have this feeling drawing me towards further adventure. At my age, the body starts its decline into its sunset years. My dear reader, I implore you to go forth and explore Astilion for yourself. Its natural beauties and mysteries will be there until someone finds them. Work like this takes more than one lifetime to complete after all. I have done my part in sharing what I've learned in my years, and I am hopeful later generations will discover the mysteries and drive back the invaders. I have faith in my dear readers on this continent and in the Kokaran Empire, and I have faith in you.